Welcome. We are live. We're doing a special surprise class on United Souls by Eli Goldsmith with PulveREDU, inspired learners, passionate educators. And if you just give a few moments while we get the class ready, it's going to be a Zoom call, but we're giving the opportunity for you guys to listen in on YouTube, just to make sure that, yes, everything's good. And we thank our hosts for setting up the Zoom meeting and the opportunity. I recommend you guys checking it out. And it's nice to collaborate with other organizations like PulveREDU, and to
PulveREDU is great.
PulveREDU.
The R was there because we were redoing education, and now it's just about insight into everything.
I don't know why I say redo, because I just feel like it's a opportunity.
Well, that's what it looks like.
It's not just that it looks like, but it's like we're redoing all our concepts through the Zoom platform and through the community.
Exactly.
And everyone has an opportunity to reevaluate what they're saying and to work it through. So there's no better way of understanding and internalization of what you're doing in life other than going over it, by talking it out and expressing it. A lot of people now are getting opportunities that didn't in the past through Zoom to communicate, and that's amazing,
It is, and that is why it is redo. Hello, Elliot. Oops, let's see if we can hear him.
I am muted. Good morning. I'm going to be in hearing mode only. I'm driving, so
Perfect.
you won't hear me. Okay.
That's great.
Right.
Thank you for joining us.
My beautiful day, and Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov. Good week to everyone.
Good week.
Exciting.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good one, and a good new year. We're getting there.
You're on your way.
Amen.
Always,
Thank you.
always.
So happy New Year for everyone. Been a crazy 2020 vision, like now we got to get into the one part, the positive.
Exactly. Diana, you can turn on your video if you want. It's up to you.
Yeah, I would turn it on in a bit. I'm just making a cup of coffee for myself.
Sure. So what we're
Coffee.
gonna do is
Perfect.
we're gonna get started because this is our crew for today. And just double checking to make sure. We have a couple who might still jump in. We sent out a couple of I sent out 2 more emails, so we'll see. But in any case, I want to welcome you to the class with Eli. It's all about being united, and we're glad to have you here at PulveREDU. Eli, do you want to do questions throughout, or you want to take a break and ask for questions?
So thank you, Lauren, for hosting, and I'd like to start with the concept so that the questions can be in that theme, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Amazing.
Perfect.
Okay, so we're just going to make sure everything looks good. Thank you so much for setting this up. PulveREDU, the Pulver family, amazing. Jeff and Lauren, who began this. And it's been a 9 month now even, journey with the 2020 generation. We've been going through a Corona challenge. And unfortunately, politically and emotionally, there's been a lot of divisiveness, especially online. And thank God we're starting to see a little bit of calming down of that, maybe in an external sense, we hope. But on an internal level, definitely people need as much encouragement as possible. And that's what this platform hopefully would do. And hopefully also would be some educational aspects as well. I do have a whole course, which, I'm not going to go through, and also basic introduction. But that will be hopefully part 2, part 3, etc. And there's a 10-part course that I have in my hands, and I will allow people to mostly be interactive, because I think that's the key to our generation to communicate more as possible. Like the long form of podcasting and everything has really taken off, and I feel that these kind of platforms give us opportunity to hear back from other people what is unity for them. For me personally, Unity United Souls is a very long journey that I've been having, thank God. I don't think just in this lifetime. I do have a very spiritual outlook, but I didn't always grow up in that way. I didn't grow up spiritually exposed so much. It was more a secular lifestyle in North London, very traditional in terms of, my Judaism and being a normal, just human being in the world. And in the last, say, over 20 years, after coming back to Israel and the Holy Land, I had a lot of epiphanies and very powerful, profound experiences. And Jeff Pulver, around 10 years into that, was part of that big journey, because I went from being more private, as Stephen Covey says, a private victory. I went more into the private aspects, into the public space of being online, building concerts and events, booking artists. And I used the past that I grew up, which I hope has unified a lot of people through music events like Live Aid, that was my upbringing, and Live Earth, and then bringing it into Eretz Yisrael, into the Holy Land, into Israel, to music events and online experience. And that's really been the focus the last few years, with, especially now with the Corona Challenge, speeding it up to United Soul experience. So that would be my intro. How do I explain what United Soul means, just before anyone asks any questions? Just really what I would say is that we all have an essential soul, every single human being on this earth. And this is an aspect of our being that can unify us all, can give us opportunity to really connect and find profound fulfillment in our journey through this world in daily life, especially when communicating to people, because if you learn to speak on the soul level, it's a whole different level of communication. If you can do that in marriage, if you can do that with your family, with your loved ones, it's a different level of life. And I would like to help, as many people, including myself and my family, to get to that level of communication. Am I always holding there, like I'm being transparent? No, I'm not always holding there. I'm not always in touch with my soul level. But it's something, the more I believe you talk about, the more I'm writing about it now, thanks to our community here. And the more you sing about it, I have a collaboration album, and now we're working on a second and third. These kind of projects build the momentum that you start bringing into your daily life through business and actualization, the soul level, that it should become more revealed in your daily life. And it shouldn't just be a theoretical concepts, because I definitely have a lot of that wisdom stored up after the 10 years of studying and learning and teaching. But the last 10 years has been much more about now bringing it into real life and sharing it. And that's why I'm very happy to climax 2020 with this class, because I believe it's the next 10 years is going to be now, how can we, and I'm personally 40 years old now, so it's like stages in my life. How can we now share this on a public level, including my wife, my soulmate, my children are now, thank God, I just made a wedding. They're going out and growing up to the next level themselves and going out into the world. So it's a transition point for me personally, but it's also a transition point globally. How do we go into 2021 on a unified level that we can actually create not just a way of communicating and not just the way they talk about it in the media. The word I would like to use is just escaping me for a moment, but there's a certain way that media portrays everything. If anyone wants to jump in with that word, I'd be happy to hear. But it's a certain storyline, and I believe that the storyline doesn't have to be divisive. It doesn't have to be political parties and left and right and religion, and it can be a very universal way of living, very with values and positivity and ability to communicate. And that's my message to now today. And I, once again, even though there's only 4 or 5, 6 people tuning in, but the beautiful thing is with United Souls is that we're always talking, when we're talking on a soul level, we're talking to everybody. It's a universal soul experience. So we're never actually by ourselves. So I remember when I was in, studying, one rabbi would come through, even if he wasn't feeling well, and teach us. Even if there was 1 or 2 people, he'd still give the class. And that's really important to know, because he knew the value. And I was one of those 1 or 2 people. And I take those lessons with me for the rest of my life. And I'm able to, thank God, teach it to sometimes hundreds, even maybe even thousands, online with the online streaming and everything. So we have the opportunity to share a lot of light. And thank you for joining us. And now I'd like to open up to questions, to conversations amongst ourselves. So please go ahead. Anyone want to go be first? Lauren, there you are with your coffee. Where are you joining us from, Nayana?
So I am right now in India.
Yes, wow.
I am virtually. I'm working in Japan.
Amazing. Tokyo, is that right?
Yeah, Tokyo. And you said it right. It's just sometimes all it needs, you just need one person to make sure that it happens. And I think most of the time it's, we ourselves, that one person. And the other thing I really liked what you said is that the time has really come that we stop talking about, how much, talking in terms of profit. We need to talk in terms of equity. See, we come from a very, very a glorious era. I think, you seem to be somebody who must have heard a lot of story from your grandparents and them telling their stories that how in older time there were little communities and everybody had their place. And now if you look at things around, it's so sad that, it's just like everything is broken and pieces are scattered. And those pieces don't know to what part they belong in the bigger picture. And what you said was right. We need to now get those pieces in their places. We need to make them realize that they're a bigger picture. They're not just a piece scattered somewhere, trying to do a 9-to-5 job and paying the bills. Yeah.
Well, I totally agree with that, obviously. And what I would like to suggest is practical steps how to do that. For example, making more of these kind of Zoom communities, like what Jeff is doing, encouraging, and Lauren, encouraging this platform of online communication so there is more unified experiences online, and that there is a theme, and there shouldn't be, some sort of guidance of what's discussed, so it shouldn't get into negative or abusive places, and to encourage the online platform that is more liberal in terms of it doesn't force people, like what's happening with big tech now, trying to control the narrative. That's the word I was trying to think of. The narrative. It doesn't try to control the narrative. It allows the narrative to be authentic and real, and the way that people should really communicate. Like, I'm a big fan of these days of Joe Rogan podcast, and he's a very successful podcaster, and there's other people like Tim Ferriss, and there's a long list of podcasting that I've been listening to over the years, and they've built, in my mind, a lot of concepts of being more effective in your lifestyle, but also being more communicative. They're amazing communicators, like a guy called Lewis Howes, very positive, very encouraging. There's a long list of these kind of people out there, and they should be, in my opinion, encouraged to keep going ahead, and other people should emulate them in building their platforms and not being held back by lack of confidence or lack of resources. People should encourage each other, like we're doing over here, to communicate more. Personally, I have online, I work with Breslev Israel, and we, on our sites, we have EMUNA concepts. EMUNA is a very universal principle. It's in Judaism, it means belief, but I would explain it more as intrinsic belief. There's certainly a level of experience of belief, not just intellectual. It should be something that people are actually tuning into on an internal level, that they're really feeling it and experiencing it. Like an experience, a person goes to a concert like I've been to in my past, and you see the unity of the people together. And I remember, even as young as I was, but being at the at the Live Aid event with Freddie Mercury and singing Radio Gaga, and everyone's clapping together, or any other kind of event I went throughout my years in the music world. And you feel that togetherness in a way that you can't experience, unfortunately, online. Maybe it can be manifest through technology one day, through streaming or some sort of high-level unity concept online. And I definitely visualize such an experience, and I do believe we'll get there, because right now that's unfortunately where we have to be mostly with events. But that concept, that experience of unity that I tasted growing up, and then I was actually, my family were promoting it and creating that experience, and they were the people behind these large events, And I myself have been behind artists and got the enjoyment of seeing people experiencing togetherness and unity. So what I would like to suggest, and that's in my first part of the course, is being proactive, is actually doing something about it. And one of the first things my wife pointed out is taking ownership of yourself. A person has to really be honest with themselves and see, how can I put that into my daily practice? So even if the world is not actively tuning in to what I'm saying, but on some level, how can I, at least in my sphere of influence, as Stephen Covey says, and the people around me, the people that are communicating to me, like, for example, the closest ones, your spouse, your children, please God, your parents, your family, how can you, at least in those spaces, create that kind of unity? And then from there, it builds outwards into the larger circles. And that is not so simple. Like you said, it seems like everything's gone very broken. And I agree with that, unfortunately. But we have to keep optimistic and be proactive rather than reactive, and do positive steps on a daily level, how we can take ownership for this. And not, like I wrote here, reactive means blaming and victimhood. But being proactive is using each experience as an opportunity to learn and grow. That's the ability that even if someone's upset with you online, or even in this kind of space, why aren't there 100 people signed up here, blah, 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 or each situation you get into in life, why this, why not that? And they're blaming you, God forbid. But that kind of experience, you can take it personally, which is a mistake, or you can think, how can I learn from this? How can I turn this around? How can I listen to that person where their pain point is? And if I'm not able to make a boundary, maybe they're not the right person for me to discuss this with, to keep everything in a very positive framework. And that will give us ability to communicate in a more effective ways. And I do feel that a lot of the brokenness can be turned around. We can actually learn, like the concept in mystical texts is turning darkness into light. So the pain, the divisiveness can actually be turned into healing and to togetherness. That's something that we're capable of, all of us. And it's just a matter of believing in ourselves and our ability. That's the soul aspect. That's why I believe it's a lot to do with tuning into that soul level, because that soul part of ourselves, the soul level of humanity is so good. It's so intrinsically good. And one of the failings of a lot of people out in the world is that they've made us think that we don't have a soul, God forbid, or that there's hatred covering up the soul, and we can't see another person's soul because of all the layers of things that they're busy with, or the different opinions. And it can be really, really hard for a person to experience that soul level. So that's something which I know myself I would love to experience life with more soul, and I'd love that other people around me can do that as well. And if I can bring it into my reality, then there's no reason that it doesn't start becoming a reality in a larger level. And I've seen it with my own eyes so many times, and that's why I said it has to come with an intrinsic belief. That you know this kind of feeling of soulness and experience of unity and communication. You believe in it, so that then the more you believe in it, the more you manifest it, the more you start to communicate to others. You feel their aura, you feel their light, you feel their love, you feel their kindness. I was talking to Lauren before we started the meeting, and there's all different religious faiths and religious holidays. Right now, we've just gone through a few ourselves, with the Jewish religions, Hanukkah, and then there's the Festival of Light from other religions, and there's so many different ways of manifesting, and it's funny how they often link up in some way at certain times of year. And, we just had, Christmas, and there's the New Year. So rather than see all the differences in the religions, because, there obviously are differences, but what are the universal principles that unite us all? What is the truth? Point, the love, the kindness. And this is what Lauren was saying before, and I see that in her family and what they've done in the online experience, that they've brought in that love and kindness so that we can all connect in that way. And I really feel that in a real level that just by going through basic values and points and then communicating, we can get there. So I'd like to hear more from if you'd like to say, if you have another question, Nayana or anyone else here, I'd like to hear more what your opinion is, your feeling, because it does help me to communicate that other people communicate back. And that's what I love about this idea, that it shouldn't just be me speaking and preaching, but like, you know, I don't want to be a preacher. I want to be a communicator. I want to like feel like we're sitting in a room together having a coffee, you know, like that's the kind of experience it should be. Oh, enjoying. I've got my water here. I'm just already, for me, it's near the end of the day. So, you know.
That's right.
Yeah. So Lauren, you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing just to sit here with the four of us and feel the connection, like you said. You know, one of the hardest things, like when you're talking about the connections, when you would go to the concerts and that feeling that everyone's connected, like that's what I would always feel when I went to go to summer camp with my kids. And we would get together, and for us, it was about the songs. It was prayer time, but it wasn't so much that it was a prayer, but it was this song that from the bottom of our soul connected all of us, even though we had just learned it. Like it didn't matter. And that is an awesome feeling, and that feeling of community and that feeling of connection. I feel we are getting through some of the stuff that we do together online, because we're keeping a sacred space, and we're saying that there's certain things that are allowed and certain things that we're going to say, please don't do in this space. And I think that for me, the hardest part, and I see that you get that there's a struggle there, that when someone is combative against it and someone wants to, whether they want to break it or they're trying to push your buttons to see how far you're going to go, that's when it falls apart for me, and I get very flustered, because it's like I'm protecting the innards of us, and I'm protecting the soul, and someone wants to bash it and say, no, your soul's no good. And I think that's the strength that I always look for towards others, is to find out, you know, well, how do you do that? How do you keep from getting broken, even though you know that you're on the right path? I mean, like you said, Naya, the whole imagery of the broken vessel is such a mystical. I mean, I learned it as a mystical Jewish teaching, and I know it's not just Jewish teaching. I know it's universal, and it fascinates me every time we all have that same feeling, like there's pieces of light everywhere that we're trying to fill ourselves up with, so that we can just shine from the inside out, and that each of us can be part of this world in such a bright, positive way, that this negativity that we feel coming at us, you know, it's like being thrown at us, and we're standing here with like a shield to ourselves to say, you can't come in, I don't want you, go away, you know. But it's hard, and that's really hard work. And I feel that, you know, yes, we're blessed because we have each other, and I have a family that keeps it going. But when someone starts badgering on it, what do you do? How do you like deflect it so that it's their stuff and not mine?
Yes, so that's something which takes a lot of inner work, and that's why I do believe the United Souls is going to be a lot of internal stuff that you're going to have to talk out with someone close. And you know, some people have professional help, some people have guidance. Like, you know, personally, I listen to a lot of special people online. One of the names that comes to mind, which we share on my network as well a lot, Gedalia Fenster. He's a guy in Miami, friend of mine, and he's putting out a lot of strong teachings. But the main point is of not allowing, he's very strong on this, of not allowing anyone to push him off his, and not just himself, but everyone who's tuning in, that they should really believe in their mission. Once you feel like you have a mission, like you're in this world for a purpose, it's not just whatever, and you're tuning into your mission, then unless someone really is saying something which is, you know, going to help you achieve. And there's a guy called Tom Bilyeu. If you go to his podcast called Impact Theory, or David Goggins, or any of these guys out there, very strong in their thing. So there's a certain strength you can get from those kind of people that can help you not feel weak or vulnerable, because you realize suddenly that you're so confident in your mission, you're so empowered, you're so inspired, you're so on fire, that often what people are saying, it's not even a true perception. So there are constructive people around who you can trust, and you put them into your sphere of influence. Like a lot of people say, it's very important to have those close people, you know, who truly want your good and truly love you and respect you, and are able to give that kind of guidance that's coming from a good, healthy place. But the general story, you have to very much filter, in my opinion, and you have to often remind yourself that they're not really talking about you. They're talking about their perception of you, which is based, unfortunately, on a lot of misconceptions, and they need help more than you need help in that respect. Can you be helpful of service to them? If they're able to allow that, it's up to them. And if they don't want, then unfortunately, you can't do so much of that. Like someone once asked me, like when I wanted to create this big unity concert in the world, and I wanted to do it, last summer, I wanted it to be in Jerusalem, and from Jerusalem, stream out to the rest of the world. But then there'll be people saying, oh, is it pro-Jewish? Is it pro-Arab? Is it pro-this? Without getting political, but who are you representing? So I'd say I'm representing unity. So, but there's some people who say, but you're still a Jew living in Israel. So then I'm going to be against that. And there are people, like I work with an artist, Nissim Black, and there are people even against him. And he's coming from Seattle, from the black community there, from the ghetto, and he built himself up to be an inspirational person. And you think, and I thought always initially, for the many years I managed him and worked with him, that everyone would unify with him because he's amazing. It's just his message is so universal, and his music, and he's from such a diverse background, and he talks such diverse ways. And yet there are people who, unfortunately, I'm starting to see, not many, very few voices, the majority is all positive, but there are still some haters. And, it's hard to, I don't like even saying the word, but there are. And what that does is it allows the people that want to unify have to strengthen themselves, and the people that want to hate will expose themselves for what they are. And Joe Rogan says a great concept that the best thing to do is not read the comments. Yeah, once you start getting more and more public, just don't read the comments unless, thank God a lot of the people in my network are very positive in their commenting. But there are some more controversial speakers and people that I'm, connected with, and the comments are terrible. And it's hard for me. Sometimes I'm, just going through the comments that are going on other people's videos. Thank God they're not on mine, but they're very negative, and it's very hard. And a lot of the time, just personally, I'd like to just delete them all. But, sometimes you have to leave them there for the sake of, allowing other opinions. That's the whole thing with editing and keeping, what would you say would the word be for making sure the narrative in your community, but what would you say the word would be? What you're doing, you're curating, or
curating, I guess that's what it is.
You're curating a community that the message should be consistent with your general value, and hopefully if you're keeping that universal and unifying enough, it should be inclusive. And when you have to be exclusive, it's on the rare occasion, but it's not a personal thing. This is something that we have the beautiful opportunity to make, as someone just messaged me now, unifications. So there's a very deep idea in mystical. You brought up mystical ideas, and I'm a big fan of mysticism. Into, once again, like the way I depicted it, through concerts, events, through these Zoom communities, through family occasions, through constantly finding, and like I said, I have in my course, but I do believe the first things first, before you can go public, you do that the private stuff. That's why I don't feel like I'm totally there yet to go totally public, because I'm still on a private level, still struggling. But then there's that balance where you have to be able to go public on some level, be honest with yourself that you still got a lot of private work to do, and there's that back and forth. And if you're in that realm of constantly working on yourself in a real authentic way, then you shouldn't really have too much time for those negative voices. It shouldn't knock you off path. You're strong in what you're doing, and you're seeing the overall the results are positive. So why let a few dissenters or negative people push you down? It's silly in a way, and you have to understand that, like I said before, they're just going to expose themselves. It's going to be obvious to the community, to the people around who are looking for the real connection, what is disconnecting, and they themselves will disconnect from what you're doing without you having to be too strong in the curating and the discipline. It sort of works itself out over time. I've seen that with so many relationships. I feel honored that Jeff has brought me into his life, and now your life, Lauren, and all the other people around. and it's been a continuous connection. And there's so many other people around, like my old friends. One of my friends is in Dubai right now, and I was seriously, since he's so nearby, I was like, I'm going on a plane. I got to go see my friend, because this last year we haven't been able to connect, and he's been in London. It's on shutdown on and off, and it's more strict there. Whereas going to Dubai, it's only an hour or so away, and it's with the time difference and everything, and it's so close, and I could just make that connection with my friend, and I was so excited, and hopefully I will get there. And I was almost booking to be there today or tomorrow. I was like that, no matter what the cost, even if I had to go into quarantine after this. My friend, I haven't seen him for since well, I don't even know, like it's been a while since, I can't even remember. That's the thing, it's getting all a bit blurred, those moments with people, because it's been so long. That's one of the things I love with Jeff, like he's got all the dates, everything worked out. Like I don't remember exactly that clearly. So, which event and which day and which month and which moment I was with that person. It's a beautiful trait that he has. But it reminds me, like, thank God, like of all those amazing breakfasts and networking events. And these are opportunities to unite with souls. So my message to everybody is, since we're not able to do this physically so much now, that we can do it as souls. We're connected as souls. And it doesn't just mean through the Zoom meeting. Like I said, there's souls listening to this conversation beyond. Like, people underestimate the power of positive words and thinking in a more unified way, what kind of effect it has on the universe. It creates, like, you have these geniuses like Einstein, and they created these tremendous theories that created these tremendous effects on the universe. But just by us talking out positive and thinking through things in positive ways, we're creating that kind of butterfly effect, that kind of massive impact on the whole universe, just by being authentic with our circle and discussing these kind of things. So I believe 100% that this class, this session, went out to thousands and thousands of souls. I believe that totally, and it affected the world in a positive way. Just like when I do any of the spiritual commandments that I have as a Jew or as a human being, I'm more godly in how I act. I'm more positive, more giving, more kind. That creates a tremendous compound effect. It's spiritually, not just on myself and my own personal spiritual growth, but it affects my wife, my children, my parents, my ancestors, and all the descendants going to come from me personally. Like when I was standing under the wedding chuppah, the canopy of my daughter, that experience, I've never experienced such a unity experience in my life. Even though my parents weren't there, they were on Zoom, and my uncles and my aunties and my cousins, they were on Zoom, and people were watching in. And I tried to tune into the PulveREDU community at the wedding, and my wife would have given me a slap for doing that. But I tried to tune in, and like it didn't work for some reason, because we were quite far out of Jerusalem. But there were so many people missing physically and online and blah blah blah. Like my closest friends were there, thank God, all having a l'chaim. They all sent me pictures of them drinking to the Zoom and the YouTube live feed. But it was so many people missing. But on an internal level, that moment under the wedding canopy, I felt like everyone was there. All my ancestors, all my wife, and all my descendants from my newly married daughter, all the souls came to that experience. And that's important to realize, that there's a whole spiritual dimension that we often don't put into when we calculate our life. Like our guest just spoke about before, that we can't always think about business in terms of profits. So I always make a joke that profit, having a prophet is also a similar word. There's a certain level of prophecy, a certain level of spirituality that we don't allow ourselves to experience, but it's actually going on every moment. And that we can all achieve a certain, not maybe a level of prophecy so easily, but at least some level of spiritual awareness, and allow ourselves to let go a little bit and to tune into that mindfulness and to that intentional living that unites us more than God forbid divides us. And that's the kind of wavelength that people will allow themselves just once in a while, even like a moment of meditation or prayer every day, just to tune into that side of themselves, that they are one with this group of people, and they're not divided. They're really a soul, and they're unified with that group of people, and actually unified on a level that's even beyond that. Like I personally say every day, B'Shem Kol Yisrael, when it's a Yichud Shalem, it's a certain well, it's the name of all the souls of Yisrael, and a yichud. It's a unification in all the humanity and all the worlds and all the worlds. And that's something which a person, if they would practice a little bit more, think about it, and it sounds a bit, overly spiritual or maybe a bit hard for every person, because I sometimes speak to very, normal, down-to-earth business people, and you can't talk these ways because it sounds a little bit too hippie or whatever. But on an internal level, even if I can't talk it, I'm feeling it, I'm thinking it, and I know I start to see that sparkle in their eyes that they're feeling it, and there's a certain connection point, and that flow that I'm very into personally, creating that flow can really make a big difference. I have podcasts, a Unity Flow podcast, Relationship Flow podcast. My goal is, and my EMUNA is our future podcast. These podcasts I have is to allow there to be a flow of positivity coming out on a daily, weekly level, that people who tune in, whoever do, feel that feeling that life flows. Example, I was interviewed on a podcast just recently, and I spoke about how I'm, a booking agent for Nissan Black, a musician, a rapper. And that moment, a person was looking to book Nissan Black. He was listening to the podcast, and he couldn't get, he just didn't find who to contact. He didn't Google it well enough or whatever. And he hears the podcast and he hears, oh, this guy. And he looks on the notes, and there's my email. Within a few minutes, I'm emailed by him to book for the next podcast for him and his interview on YouTube and everything else, and his community. And I think it's a place called Torch and somewhere in Texas. And they had a whole event built from that one listening of me mentioning I helped this artist. And people network that way all the time, and it's just very nice that you have these avenues of connecting with people in a global sense. In the past, I told people that I wouldn't even be available. I was traveling all the time, doing in-person events. I couldn't go on a podcast. I couldn't I couldn't be on this community so much. I just didn't have time for it. And this has created space in people's lives to find new ways of connecting that really can actually enhance relationships, because it's done in a way in our own comfort, in our own home. Look at the beautiful dog from Lauren there. We can actually just sit there and connect, and it's beautiful. And I'd like to hear from more people because I'm speaking a long time. Does anyone else want to say anything? Tune in. I'm happy to hear from anybody here. Any questions? We brought up about being reactive and proactive. I'll talk about the next point in the course then. Making a mission statement on values, goals, and dreams. So I do feel that that's something really profound and powerful. That if, once again, we already said before about the power of having a mission, but if a person and each organization, even PulveREDU and Breslev, Israel, every organization you around has some sort of mission statement. Personally, mine is United Souls, so we should be able to join together. That experience and mission statement is very empowering, and it gives you clarity because you have values, goals, dreams. These are things that you can really get much more strength in what you're trying to do in life. And I think the mission statement is something everyone should have written down. And I really got a lot of inspiration from Stephen Covey about that concept in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So we give him credit. But also, the next one is how to live more effectively and focused when we face so many distractions and uncertainties. I think that would be like the main point, because these are the first 3 points, are more to do with private victory. And I think that we have to start off the first getting ourselves into the right framework. So how do we be more effective? So often that's to do with time management, using our time effectively. Everyone's time is very precious, not to waste people's times, and to make sure, like, for example, in a communication space like we have in Zoom, to be sensitive of how long we talk. I like the fact that in our groups we only have like a minute or so. I actually prefer that, quickening of time. I'm personally someone who could talk a lot. I can write a lot. Like, I'm writing a book right now. It's been very helpful for me to express all these ideas in my mind. But in order to connect with other people, it's really important to be able to talk on a very specific level, and to really be able to connect in an effective, time-managed way. And not just that, to have your priorities in life. What is your priorities? Why has this become such a priority for me personally in my spare time to be on these community chats? Because connection with people is a priority in my life. Does it get in the way of family first? Well, hopefully not, because my family have to always come first. And I think that's something which would resolve some of the brokenness we mentioned at the beginning of this, that if we have that in mind, the family first concept is a value that unfortunately is being challenged very much nowadays. And once again, I'm not trying to get political, but just to understand that everyone needs connection, no matter who you are. And everyone needs some sort of family structure, even if you don't have any live family, but there is the concept of that, of a friend or a guide, or there's all kinds of people that you can connect with and unify with, and it has that model of a family. It doesn't have to be, strictly speaking, the very strict mode of family. Obviously, that's not the point. The point is the connection aspect. But when you do have a family, to prioritize those people, and that's something which I know myself, like, is a struggle with the business and the way world is. And one now, thank God, not traveling, that's been made easier. But then also with the Zoom, not to overly Zoom, not to over Zoom, to be zoomed out, as people make a joke, like to keep that in a boundary as well. And that's a big thing, keeping the distractions. I think if we're not so distracted, then we can tune in. Like there's times to chill out. Like I'm right next to where my bedroom is, and where I said in the other day with one of Jeff's meeting, it's a safe space for me, and it's my happy place, not just because I sleep, but because I do my writing there and I communicate to my wife, and we do our chilling there. We have our glass of wine and our time to just relax. And that's also being effective, because you have to have the run and rest balance. You can't be running all the time. You can't be resting too much. And during this Corona challenge, everyone had to readjust and reevaluate what their running time is and resting time when they're busy hustling, when they're busy, giving to themselves and their family, keeping life very focused and balanced. And I think that's something which can help create much more unity if everyone had that more under control. If the over hustle was toned down a little bit out there online, that people are hustling way too much. Even before this class, I suddenly felt this pressure, to get people to come. So I'm going to over hustle, and it can probably be irritating to people, at the same time, my intention is good, because I want people to join this experience. So getting that balance and being intentional about it, these are constant thoughts that we have to work through and structure in our schedule, and also know what is going to be effective. For example, for me, doing these kind of classes is definitely a big priority in my schedule. Doing any kind of class, opportunity to connect with people. I give a class weekly on a Monday, 2:45 p.m. Israel time, and thank God, I've seen online thousands of people listen to it, and it's been very encouraging for me weekly to prepare for it. I already have my class for tomorrow prepared, and tonight I'm doing a class in a few hours with a famous rabbi in the studio, which is where I also record my class. And in that studio, we really get some great guests come. We've had 20 classes and some really inspirational people. And that's, for me, a very important part of my schedule, to collaborate with other people online. We were having tonight someone zoom in from South Africa about money, how to make money more soulful, which would connect to the original point we had at the beginning. The making business should be more soulful experience. It shouldn't just be. So the course is called Soulful Money. We had soulful music, soulful truths, everything to bring an aspect of soul into what you're doing. This is something which people can gain a lot from, and I think it would energize people's lives. Would realize that maybe they don't have to be so feeling such victimhood or other kinds of crutches that are affecting people right now, or even the poverty aspect that people go on and on. If we would restructure our way of thinking and realize how blessed we all are, how much abundance there is in our generation, and how much blessings we have that the previous generations, our ancestors couldn't imagine. Like one of our guests said, I probably have amazing stories. I may think one of the stories is the poverty that they had, in the 20s and the 30s in London, or before that in Europe, or wherever it was where my ancestors were, and the abundance. Even going to my grandparents' house, the simplicity, the little amount of things they had in their house, and the joy they had from just simple living, that we can remind ourselves that we have so much, and yet we're not so joyful. So to restructure our mindset, to enjoy the what we have, and that can create a much less jealousy, much less, need to overly hustle. Suddenly there's a much more, as we call it in Hebrew, a stapkus, a satisfaction in our life, a certain fulfillment, and that can give us the ability to be much more effective. Like, maybe sometimes I'm a bit extreme on the other side where I'm a little bit too overly fulfilled. Like, I don't really, go shopping so much, unlike my wife, who loves shopping. And my wife and I, we try to balance that out together. Like, she bought me this as a new top. We just bought it the other day. It looks a bit nicer than the faded one or whatever, or with the stain or whatever it was. Have to be respectful in how we look and dress. And, these are things that balance. And nowadays, that's like an understatement. People want, name brands, and people have all these like levels of fashion. Look at what's out there on, you go onto Netflix and you see the standard, the quality of how people look. And it's not even reality, as my wife always reminds me. She says, see that lady? She doesn't actually look like that in real life. Yeah. It's a lot of hours of preparation, maybe even surgery, maybe even this, maybe even that, all kinds of extra stuff. And not only that, all the effects nowadays. And as Joe Rogan once said, his daughter made him into a woman, for an app. So, like, it was like this stunning lady, and he was like, I don't look like that. I'm a savage. That's not me. But this is how scary technology's got, and perceptions of people. So once again, we have to go back into that soul level, that internal level of what really matters. It's not how we experience people externally, but how we experience people on an internal level. And then all the jealousy and all the insecurities and all the food problems that people have, and all this struggle with so many things that cause so much pain on emotional level, can be reduced because we're thinking on a more elevated, essential internal way. And then people can actually enjoy life much more. They can actually enjoy their relationships in a much higher level. So my hope is that, what we discussed today, this is just, like I said, really part one, and hopefully more people would join in and contribute in the future. We'll have like tens of people giving opinions, and it can get more back and forth. But the goal is that, once again, that we are communicating on a soul level, and I believe in that soul level. It's not something which is, just, a nice, concept that you can forget about. It's a daily experience. The people around you are walking souls, and ultimately you're going to be a soul for eternity. Everyone has to, on some level, believe that. You don't just disappear into nothingness. What kind of, it takes a lot of belief to believe in nothingness, to believe that there's something after this all, make sense of this whole journey in this world, to understand that there's some sort of matrix experience, and there's something beyond the matrix, that we have that ability. And that is happening right now, and it's happening in the future, and it was happening before as well. It's not just some, spiritual concept for, down the road after 120 or whatever. We are experiencing the soul now, in the moment now, and it creates a whole different way of doing business, and it hopefully should make you happy, because the soul wants happiness. It doesn't want sadness. And if you're feeling, talk it out, but to be strong in your belief in yourself, that you are purpose, you have a mission, you have values. People need you in this world. Your existence is important, and everything you're doing has that soulful experience of meaning, and creates that kind of unification that makes the world a good place to be, and that you can, on your small levels, make massive impact, and you can transform this world that seems so divisive into a world of unity, just by you being more unified in yourself and unifying with others. And it creates ripple effects. And like I said, the haters, the people that want to undo that, will expose themselves. We don't have to go and fight and expose them. They'll expose themselves. So we can relax in that respect of wanting to be on like guard all the time, or fighting. By just us creating that unified experience, it will already filter out a lot of the negative voices. And I've seen that in my online experience. I thank God I've never been political online, and therefore I never attracted. Fine, I'm not a powerful, famous guy because I haven't gone the controversial way. But who would want that when you see how much hatred and negativity it creates as well? So it's better to just be authentic and truthful. And if there are more of us, doing this, I believe that we'll have a United Souls experience in this world. Amen. So that's pretty much it for today. If anyone wants to say anything else, I'm happy to hear, like a goodbye or hello. And that's it. You know, I do believe that there's...
I would give Elliot a chance because he has been pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Elliot's driving, so... Oh, wait, there he is. Elliot, do you have anything you'd like to add, sweetie?
First of all, it was a very nice spiritual talk.
Oh,
And I just want to make a mention, you know, you put out that energy and soul, and then there are always that negative, what you spoke about, but, you know, you got to populate the world with loving people. And when you put out that message, it vibrates and it jumps, you know. Years ago, with my friend Michael, we created this website called The Magic of Israel, called United with Israel.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to show the beauty of it. And we didn't want to have politics or anything like that. And all of a sudden it jumped. And what's beautiful about it, it jumped to the non-Jewish world, the beauty of Israel, the magic of it. You know, and thank God today we have over 6.5 million people.
Wow.
But the reality is that we talk about positive things, magical things. You know, you wake up in the morning in the Jewish world, and you know, you go to sleep at night, and you don't know where you are, but you wake up and there you are. You thank God for bringing back your soul. So they say in mysticism, where was your soul? Your soul was visiting your great-great-grandfather and generations that haven't been created yet. And then you come back, and it's like charging your iPhone, and you're back on the world, and there you have it. Your heart's working, it's pumping, you're alive and well, and just reach for beautiful things.
Yeah, amen.
Positive things.
Yeah, and I think that we can do that. Like, you've manifested it online successfully. It's not something which can't be done. So all credit to you and your team, and it should grow and grow.
Yeah, but look what Jeff has created.
Yeah, sure.
All he talks about is love and spirituality and all the people that are connected. And then you have your I call it confession. You go to your rooms.
Confession rooms, the Zoom rooms, the confession rooms.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned, you know. And everyone in the room says it's okay. So, you know, it's all good.
I like
You know
that.
what?
Someone else messaged me. They wanted to know.
The one person we don't give credit for is Lauren.
Oh, yeah,
Lauren
sure.
has a tremendous amount of spirituality for children, caring and love of people, and making this whole thing work for Jeff. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Elliot. And someone just messaged me, how can we pray in the US for all the people in Israel who are now experiencing a crazy lockdown? Which literally, as we started this...
It's not just Israel.
I know. The lockdown went into action literally as we started this session. And the streets were crazy, like jam-packed, because everyone's trying to get home. And
Ellie, the Jewish people were in the desert for 40 years.
Yeah.
So you think we're going to worry about this? Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's only a 2-week lockdown, not so bad. You know, like
Don't worry about it.
I have to say it's a little more lenient, because we have 1,000 meters. They're allowed to go, so I can still go to the studio, which thank God is less than 1,000 meters away, and I can still do my studio class, and where I pray is less than 1,000 meters away. So personally,
This is not from me.
yeah, I'm personally in a situation where I can still access all my main points. Thanks. So you're right. It's definitely not something to worry about. Yeah, let's hope. The main thing is that whatever they're trying to accomplish with the lockdown in terms of keeping people healthy and safe, that part should be accomplished. And the positive aspects of being more together with family and less running around, that can also be accomplished. The family first aspect, that we're all forced into close quarters of our family, which sometimes can actually create more problems. But in a way, once again, it exposes what the relationship level is and what you're doing, and you can work on that aspect of your relationship. And the other point is that, just to pray that this shouldn't happen again. I mean, it's really long term. This is not healthy for people. People need to be out. People need to, I want to hug Jeff on Tel Aviv Beach again soon. And I want to meet Lauren in person, because I don't remember actually ever meeting you or any of the other people. Our friend from India, we should meet in person, please God. I'd love, I was planning a tour to India actually, not so long ago. We were talking about it. And I've been to Mexico, and yeah, it'd be amazing to come there and just, meet the people there, because we do have a following online, God, from India, and they definitely reached out to us about coming to visit. And these kind of things, that this should be the kind of world. It should be global, and it should be unified and connected. And we should pray that we should go out from these situations to really join together, and not, now we have an opportunity to get back to the fighting. Let's get back to the unifying. Let's get back to global
what
peace.
I was thinking while you were talking about it, what I was thinking is that we have so many health insurance plans. Now we need to work on the karma insurance plan.
Yeah.
Because karma isn't just limited to us, what you were talking, our ancestors and our descendants. It's not the body, it's the soul that we are talking about.
Yeah, and we should allow that voice to get stronger. Why not? Why can't people? What are people afraid of talking about the soul? It's not going to punish people. We're not a negative soul. It's a loving, giving, kind experience of mankind, of humankind. It's not some limited, horrible thing that people have distorted the soul to be some, I don't know what. For me, like, the soul is where my music comes from, my creativity, my joy, my relationship with my wife. We're soulmates, we join together. This is the kind of soul experience. My children are manifestations of the soul. To talk about, a famous guide once told me, if you want to help kids who are at risk, teenagers at risk, you have to learn to talk to the souls in them, because to talk to them, what you're going to do, go on TikTok and try and like do the dance with them. Like, it's, how hard are you going to work to be relatable to the new generation? So what I would say is that the soul level is relatable always. And I've seen that with my children. I do have one or two children who are struggling in that way. And I've worked in that world for many, many years. And whenever allow myself to be more soulful in how I communicate. My wife is a genius at this. I'm still learning. That's one of the ways. Sometimes you have to teach it to learn it, to teach it. It's an upward spiral. You just keep growing because you're working on it all the time. Even if you have moments of fall, but even if the spiral looks like it's going down, but ultimately it's always going up. So you're always going upwards in your growth, and that's the kind of positive mindset you have to deal with growth and self-work, to keep a very upward momentum, even if you have moments of seemingly falls, and when you're not living up to these ideals that we've discussed today on a personal level. So if you keep that larger picture together, I think that we're all going to get there. Someone messaged me, I have sons, they want to know what would be a good spiritual tool to help them. One spiritual tool. So I think the best thing that we've ever done in our home is to teach our kids to be kind and caring towards other people. So I think that would be the most important tool to give to the next generation, is to teach them how to be kind and caring and compassionate and giving. And like you said, that would bring the karma, that would bring that positive circle of life in a happy way, in a good way, more and more to your children and to their lives and to their sphere of influence. And that's already giving them a legacy. And I think that's something that everyone in the world can do, is be more kind and caring. And we have, thank God, good teachers out there. Tony Robbins, he's feeding millions, or so he says. So let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
The thing is that what you touched on is so true. In education, there was a time when values were just never needed to be taught at school, right? Your soul was nourished with home, but home is different for so many people that in the past 20 years, one of the things that we do, especially as early childhood educators, is always look at the bottom line. Like, what is it that we want them to learn? They're 3 years old. They're coming into my room for 3-4 hours a day. It's not about teaching them what an A looks like, but it's teaching them that we're a person and you're a person. And when you say that, it hurts my feelings, and this is how I feel and this is how you feel. And, when you grow that kindness, then you're growing people that you're proud to be in their company, and you want them in your community. And, it's coming in all ends now in school, and schools finally understanding that some of our kids are coming from a place where they never knew what soul was. So open the door, even in school or